Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. This morning is a morning like no other, or one of those mornings we should say, where we prepare and we wait and we sit patiently for the T.H.A budget presentation. This morning we would see the Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, in the House this morning in the Assembly Legislature, and he's going to be reading out the Tobago 2024-2025 budget presentation for this fiscal. And this morning we're going to talk a bit about that with Mr. Barry Joefield, who is an economist. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Shenell. Good morning, Tobago.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being with us this morning. Now, this year's budget presentation is focused on human capital development. Tell us a bit about what you are expecting to see out of this year's budget presentation.
I think I might want to put it a bit differently. Let me start off by, basically honoring the memory of my father. Tomorrow will make 11 years since he passed on. And so before I start, there was something that he said to me that might be appropriate in this circumstance. He basically said, if Tobagonians are not careful, we'd probably have to come out of the bush to hunt tourists. And it was a very curious statement that he made at that point in time. And I have grown to be wary of the implication of saying. The point I'm making is maybe human capital development probably will speak to scholarship programs, training Tobagonians, and so on. But in a sense, you train Tobagonians into what economy? We don't have an economy in Tobago that can absorb trained Tobagonians. By the time you become trained, there's no space in the Tobago economy to absorb you. So what we need to do really is to expand the broad economy so that the training takes place in that context. I think we
Right.
have really to be.
And when we think about human capital development, we not only think about the skills training of the individual, but we also think about the overall standard of living that persons have to, survive with as they develop themselves holistically. When it comes to housing and infrastructure, do you think that he would find a way to fit this into the whole idea of the human capital development in this particular budget?
Well, I'm hopeful this thought would be in that direction. But let me just go back to say the standard of living issue that you raised is a very important one. In the context of, I don't know that that goes so much to human capital development, but one aspect of it really. But in terms of the economic development, Tobago is in a really bad shape. We have to recall that if you look at our GDP per capita with 60,000 people, the kind of budget, $3 billion, we're probably averaging maybe 4,000 per month per person in Tobago. Compare that to Trinidad, which is about 8,000 per month per person. And we see the huge disparity immediately in terms of the standard of living of a Tobagonian versus the standard of living of someone living in Trinidad. It's probably clear reasons why most Tobagonians leave Tobago to go to Trinidad or elsewhere to exist. I'm hopeful, though, that the issue of housing is one that is brought on squarely onto the cards. I am of the belief that the issue of funding is really a red herring, really, because even in the context of housing, I would like to see something like a housing trust. And a housing trust could be financed without monies from Trinidad. A housing trust could be, you know, could be done based on the T.H.A lands with private sector, the banks, the credit unions putting money in, also private individuals putting money into this housing trust, and houses can be built for Tobagonians without, the need for money from Trinidad, as the case may be. So I'm hopeful that the discussion doesn't go back to we need more money from Trinidad because I think it's a red herring in terms of what we can do with the resources that we have and the resources that we're able to generate by way of encouraging investment into it.
And during the last two budget presentations, we heard a lot about the investment in education, digitalized systems, as well as hybrid learning structures to be introduced, all being a part of that human capital development. For you particularly, where do you think most of the attention and energy should be placed with the limited resources that is often given, even after the budgetary requests are made, in order to help fulfill this human capital development mandate on the island?
Well, for me, I don't know that. Listen, I think we have enough Tobagonians outside of Tobago who would be willing to come back to Tobago to work if there was the opportunity to do that. So for me, I don't think the issue really is about um, you know developing human capital in Tobago, although it's a necessary evil as well. What I'm saying though, you have enough Tobagonians working outside of Tobago that are willing to come back and contribute to Tobago. The question is, what do they come back to contribute to? And therefore, it begs the question we need to develop an economy that allows a Tobagonian living wherever in the world to be able to come back to Tobago and exist. So I think on the last occasion I mentioned the issue about university, a University of Tobago with international campuses being located in Tobago. If you have something like that, then you would have a situation where Tobagonians who are educated beyond the first degree, who might have exceptional technical skills, would be able to come back, operate in an environment like that, find work that they can do, be able to contribute to Tobago. So the idea for me is more about economic expansion rather than human capital development in a real sense. Although we need that, I am I subscribe to the view that the economic expansion is more critical in my mind. The ability to attract investment, to expand the economy would be uh, more important than human capital development. Although I'm saying human capital development is critical, yes, it is important.
Okay. And last week we had a press conference from the political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Mr. Watson Duke, and he would have hinted to the fact that this administration has continued to prepare and present a deficit budget, being that they're often projecting or requesting an amount that they have never truly been given. In a conversation last week as well with the management accountant, we heard that a lot of the money that actually is spent out of the T.H.A on a monthly basis goes to overdraft fees from receiving payments late from the central government. Now, with all of this, do you think that we're going to see another quote unquote deficit budget being presented today?
Well, I don't know that deficit budget is an issue per se. I mean, it depends on what you're using that deficit budget to do. It's just like anybody borrowing. If you borrow money and you invest it in some asset that is going to generate for you returns, you know, beyond what you might get in current time, then it makes sense. So a deficit budget in itself is not an issue. But if you are using this to finance salaries, um, current expenditure, then it does not make sense. And so I would like to see what this deficit budget is being used to finance, and then we can have a discussion about that. But a deficit budget in itself is not an issue. It's largely dependent on what you are using this deficit uh, budget to finance. I think the more important issue is that we are operating on a transfer subsidy budget, meaning that all we do is wait for money from Trinidad to exist. And I think that is more critical in my mind than even a deficit budget. How do we generate our own revenue in Tobago to do our business in Tobago and be able to supplement this 4%, 6%, as the case may be, that we get from Trinidad. And I think, again, it goes back to the issue of economic expansion, revenue generation. So things like Marina for Tobago, those are the kinds of things I would like to see in the budget, where you can bring, resources to bear on, investment in that kind of way. You would have that would spawn tourists coming, your yachties coming, and that's the kind of economic expansion we need to look at. Those are the kinds of things we need to be uh, hoping that happens in the budget today, more than just the issue of a deficit budget. A deficit budget in my mind is not a big issue unless it's used for current expenditure.
All right, thank you. And in closing, is there anything that you who want to say as we anticipate that presentation this morning from the Chief Secretary?
Yeah, there are a few things, maybe three. One, I would like to see a division of crime and safety. I think crime is our number one issue. I would like to see a division like that headed. Again, I go back to Tobagonians living outside of Tobago. So you have people like Dr. Wendell Wallace, who is a criminologist, and there are means and mechanisms where he operates from the University of the West Indies. He can be seconded to the T.H.A. to head up a unit like this, and you get criminology infused into this whole crime fighting strategy that would allow us to arrest this issue of crime, because crime and safety trumps everything else. If we don't feel safe, and I don't think we feel safe, nothing else matters. Tourists won't come, locals won't go out, the economy will grind to a halt. So I think division of crime and safety that would allow focus to be placed on crime initiatives and so on, linked to the whole national security apparatus, is one of the things I would want to see. Secondly, I would want to see some emphasis on sustainable energy, getting into wind, solar, um, you know, those types of things that would wean us away from our fossil fuel dependence. I would like to hear something about that, and also I would like to hear something about the tourism sector and investment in the tourism sector. Finally, I would really like to hear, though I doubt I would hear it, divestment of many of these T.H.A enterprises. Top of the list in my mind would be an enterprise like Spell. Spell has never made money, and I don't see why selling rocks can't make money, but in the current construct, so I think a divestment of companies like Spell, Pigeon Point Limited, to Tobagonians should be on the cards. That would generate income for Tobago and allow the T.H.A some room to create economic space to do other stuff for Tobago. So
Right.
those things.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joefield, and we want to thank you for giving us your time this morning and giving your comments on that T.H.A budget that's going to be presented by the Chief Secretary this morning. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be right back after this.
Thanks a lot.
It's a